Hello everyone and welcome to all of you in this video. Russia believed its drone army would dominate the skies of Ukraine in 2026. However, in a stunning reversal, thousands of those same drones never even took off, destroyed before they could launch, neutralized not in battle, but in silence, deep inside Russian territory. What was supposed to be Moscow's most scalable advantage has turned into its most fragile weakness. And the consequences of that shift are now unfolding faster than anyone expected. The images you are about to see on your screens reveal something far more disturbing than a simple battlefield loss. Warehouses once filled with unmanned aerial systems now sit as blackened shells. Rows of FPV drones, carefully assembled and calibrated, lie melted into the concrete, but that is not the most shocking detail. There are two critical mechanisms behind this collapse, and both point to a transformation in modern warfare that Russia failed to anticipate. We will return to them shortly, because first, the timeline itself reveals how rapidly this crisis escalated. On February 18, 2026, at approximately 0240 local time, a series of coordinated strikes hit drone storage facilities across Russia's Belgorod and Kursk oblasts. According to reports from the Institute for the Study of War and corroborated by CSIS analysis, at least 6 major depots were targeted within a 90-minute window. These were not frontline positions. They were deep logistical hubs, located between 40 and 120 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, previously considered beyond immediate threat range. Inside these facilities were an estimated 12,000 to 15,000 FPV drones, including modified Shahed 136 variants and domestically assembled kamikaze systems. Russian Defense Ministry statements initially described the incidents as isolated fires caused by technical malfunctions. But satellite imagery released 48 hours later told a different story. Entire storage complexes had been systematically destroyed. Precision impact points suggested external targeting, not internal failure. The scale alone indicated a coordinated campaign. And this is where the deeper story begins to unfold. To understand what happened, one must look at the technical architecture of Russia's drone warfare strategy. Since late 2024, Moscow had shifted heavily toward mass deployment of first-person view drones, relying on volume rather than sophistication. These systems, often costing between $400 and $1,200 per unit, were designed for rapid assembly and immediate deployment. Controlled via radio frequencies or fiber optic cables, they allowed operators to guide explosives directly into armored targets with high precision. However, this strategy depended on one critical assumption: secure storage and uninterrupted logistics. Russia built centralized depots to streamline distribution, often housing thousands of drones in a single location. These depots were connected to forward units through rail and truck networks, creating a continuous supply chain. On paper, this system maximized efficiency. In reality, it created a single point of catastrophic vulnerability. Ukrainian forces, leveraging a combination of satellite intelligence, signals interception, and partisan reconnaissance, began mapping these hubs as early as December 2025. According to leaked intelligence summaries referenced by European defense analysts, at least 60% of Russia's drone storage infrastructure had been geolocated by mid-January. The stage was set for a systematic disruption. The first mechanism behind the collapse was precision deep strike capability. Ukraine employed long-range drones equipped with inertial navigation systems and terrain-following algorithms, allowing them to bypass traditional air defense coverage. These drones flew at altitudes below 50 meters, evading radar detection before striking fixed coordinates with meter-level accuracy. In several documented cases, the attacking drones entered through ventilation shafts or structural gaps, detonating inside storage halls rather than on external surfaces. The second mechanism was electronic warfare inversion. Russia had invested heavily in jamming systems designed to disrupt Ukrainian drone operations. But these same systems created electromagnetic signatures that revealed the location of high-value assets. Ukrainian intelligence exploited these emissions, effectively turning Russia's defensive shield into a targeting beacon. This is where things get really strange, because the very technology meant to protect these depots ended up exposing them. The immediate tactical result was devastating. Within 3 days, Russia lost an estimated 30 to 40% of its operational FPV drone reserves in the Western theater. That translates to roughly 5,000 to 7,000 units eliminated before deployment. But the implications extend far beyond numbers. This tactical destruction triggered a cascading operational failure. Without consistent drone supply, Russian frontline units began losing their primary reconnaissance and strike capability. FPV drones had been responsible for up to 70% of localized engagements, particularly in trench warfare scenarios. Their absence created blind spots along a front stretching over 1,000 kilometers. These blind spots translated into reduced situational awareness. Units could no longer identify Ukrainian movements in real time. Artillery coordination became less precise. Infantry advances slowed as commanders hesitated without aerial confirmation. Within 2 weeks, multiple sectors reported increased Ukrainian maneuver activity, particularly near Kupiansk and Avdiivka. And this is where the chain reaction becomes critical. Tactical losses in drone capacity led to operational paralysis. Operational paralysis forced defensive postures. Defensive postures ceded initiative. And loss of initiative in a conflict defined by attrition begins to reshape the strategic balance. According to CSIS projections, a sustained 25% reduction in Russian drone availability could decrease frontline offensive capability by up to 40%. That is not a marginal shift. That is a structural weakening of Russia's warfighting model. But this battlefield transformation does not exist in isolation. It feeds directly into the broader geopolitical landscape. Russia's reliance on drone warfare had been partially offsetting its declining manpower quality and logistical inefficiencies. By compensating with technology, Moscow maintained pressure along multiple axes. Now that compensation is eroding. At the same time, Ukraine's success in targeting deep infrastructure signals a new phase of the conflict. This is no longer a war confined to trenches and artillery duels. It is a war of systemic disruption, where supply chains themselves become the battlefield. And this shift carries implications far beyond Eastern Europe. NATO analysts have begun reassessing the vulnerability of centralized military logistics. The idea that rear area assets are safe is rapidly dissolving. Similar concerns are emerging in Asia, particularly regarding China's distributed drone networks and their dependence on fixed production hubs. Economically, the impact is equally significant. Russia's drone production relies on imported components, including microprocessors and optical systems. Disruptions in storage and deployment increase wastage, forcing higher production rates to maintain operational levels. According to recent estimates, replacing the destroyed inventory could cost between $50 million and $80 million, not including infrastructure damage. But numbers alone do not capture the full picture. There is a psychological dimension unfolding beneath the surface. Russian soldiers who once relied on constant drone support now operate with uncertainty. The persistent hum of UAVs, once a symbol of dominance, has diminished. In its place is a silence that carries its own kind of pressure. Footage emerging from the front lines shows soldiers scanning empty skies, waiting for reconnaissance that never arrives. The absence of drones does not just reduce capability. It alters perception. It creates doubt. And in warfare, doubt can be as destructive as any weapon. Leadership psychology is also shifting. The Kremlin's strategy had increasingly leaned on technological scaling to offset structural weaknesses. The assumption was clear: more drones, more pressure, eventual breakthrough. That assumption is now under strain. If volume can be neutralized before deployment, the entire model requires reevaluation. And this brings us to the future projection, where the stakes become even higher. If Ukraine continues this campaign, targeting not just storage but production facilities, the impact could compound rapidly. Short-term disruptions could evolve into long-term degradation of Russia's drone ecosystem. At the same time, Russia may adapt by decentralizing storage, dispersing assets across smaller mobile units. But decentralization introduces inefficiencies. It slows distribution. It complicates coordination. It trades vulnerability for friction. Another possibility is escalation. Faced with diminishing technological advantage, Moscow could intensify other forms of warfare, including missile strikes or cyber operations. Each path carries its own risks and consequences, not just for Ukraine, but for the broader international system. What remains certain is that we are witnessing a transition point. The destruction of these drone depots is not just an isolated event. It is a signal. A signal that the rules governing modern conflict are shifting again faster than doctrines can adapt. Russia believed its drone army would secure its advantage. Instead, that very system has exposed a new layer of vulnerability. A vulnerability that, once revealed, cannot easily be concealed. What are your thoughts on this development? Do you think this marks a turning point in the conflict, or will adaptation restore the balance? Don't forget to share your perspective in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Russia built a system designed for dominance, but in doing so, it created a structure that could be shattered from within. And now, the consequences of that design are unfolding in real time. Thank you for choosing us.